So first things first is, because this is the Strong Black Fathers podcast, you would not be on this show without having kids. So
if you were not a father.
Exactly. How many kids do you have?
I have two kids, one girl and one boy. My daughter is 2.5 and my son is 1.5.
Okay, nice. And what are their names?
Andy is my oldest and Axton is my son. He's the youngest.
Okay. And you guys didn't waste any time between Andy and Axton at all?
No, not at all. We wanted to front load our pain and get it all out of the way and, have my wife be done by about 35 and call it a day.
Okay, perfect. Now, are you guys going to shoot for any more later down the line?
No, absolutely not.
Two and done.
Two and done. It's funny because when we first started, we were like, all right, we want 4. And then when we had my daughter, we were like, all right, 3. 3's good. And then we had my son and we were like, we're done. We're good. We are through. Because, essentially, like having a kid in Los Angeles is like owning a Ferrari. It's a ton. So we're good.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm over here in DC. It's still not the greatest thing in the world either. It's not cheap, but it is what it is. So I understand.
You get it.
But yeah, man. So let's jump into a little bit of your past. You were an incredible athlete, 3-sport athlete in high school, probably even more. Went to go play football at TCU. Did you actually play with LaDainian Tomlinson?
I did. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Okay. So I was still kind of redshirted at the time that he was kind of breaking records and doing all that, and then he got drafted, and I started to play right after that. So we were together on the same team for a year.
Nice.
Yeah, he was cool, man. That guy's awesome. I mean, we still keep in touch, so he's a good dude.
Okay, cool. Are there any other players that made it to the NFL other than yourself, obviously, that you played with that were like huge names or notable names?
There's LT. There's other guys like Aaron Schobel that were defensive ends in the whole kind of Schobel family. There was like 3 of them. I think two were DNs and one was a tight end. And then from my class, I don't know too many that kind of made it to the NFL. I know some that tried out for teams, a few that kind of stuck around for a year, but there wasn't like too many. I know TCU now has a lot of people that go to the NFL, but I have no idea who they are. They're super young and awesome, and I'm old and historic. So
you don't pay attention. You're not at all the alumni weekends and everything.
Oh no. I watch. But I can't give you a rundown of who are scouting. Who's being scouted and all that. Once again, children.
Children and a budding career, man. You got some good things going on right now.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm just trying to work, trying to stay busy. So they've been my people have been doing a good job trying to keep me busy. So I appreciate it.
Sure. But you did spend a little bit of time in the NFL, played with the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And what I did not realize until recently is that right when you were starting acting, the Seahawks actually reached out to you and wanted to get you on board over there. What made you decide, like, this is it? Like, I'm done with NFL? Well,
I had, at the time I left, I was with Tampa Bay. We had kind of an injury settlement. And I had, I was just kind of, it was going to be one of those things where I was supposed to kind of just wait and my agents will bring me another offer from another team or something like that. And I kind of took off to San Diego because this is all I've ever wanted to do was to be an actor. And I think as soon as I had an opportunity, I kind of just took off to San Diego. I started kind of checking in with LA, going back and forth, and got my first audition the first thing I auditioned for, I got, which was this kind of webisode for Burn Notice that was on USA. Way back in the day. Yeah. So and it was like a $300 job working like 3 days. It was like the most minimal thing ever. And then I think my second day doing it, my reps called and they were like, hey, listen, the Seahawks want to offer you a contract. And it was the hardest decision, man. It was super tough to kind of just give up 7 figures in the NFL and then to be like, I'm going to just start this over and trust myself enough to make $300 and hope it grows from there, So that was the toughest part.
I recently actually heard somebody say, like, I would much rather make, $1 working on my own, doing my own thing versus making $100,000 or $100 working for somebody else. Like, did you feel that way when you were doing? Okay.
I tell people all the time, I think happiness is underrated. I think a lot of times people, in this life, they look at it and they go, well, I'm making good money. I hate my job, but at least I, have a car or can, do this or that. And that's great. And I understand situations for everybody are different. Some people just have to do a particular job or have to do something because they need, for kids and family and that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of times we underrate happiness. I think a lot of times people don't realize how unhappy they actually are. And it's funny how when you find something that's your passion, something that you think about when you get up and it's the last thing you think about before you go to bed, once you tap into that, it's amazing how the financial success comes after a while. You know what I mean? Just because of the fact that you're doing something that makes you happy, and it kind of it sprouts out to the rest of your life.
For sure. All right. So yeah, you shifted around in position wise. So I know you went to TCU playing D-line. Was that right?
Yeah. So I came in because I initially out of high school went to the Naval Academy, and I transferred from the Naval Academy to TCU. I walked on, and then I was a defensive lineman, and Coach Francione at the time was like, "Listen, I think as a defensive lineman you'll play faster, but you won't get a scholarship. But if you become an offensive lineman, I think you can get a scholarship and possibly go to the NFL, but it's going to take you longer because it's a skill set that you got to learn." And I was like, all I heard was scholarship. So I was like, yep, I'll be an O-lineman, done. And then it just went from there.
Okay. And then I saw also once you actually made it to the NFL, they switched you from, was it left tackle to right tackle or from right tackle to left?
I played both. So
Okay.
a lot of times in Miami, Hudson Houck was our O-line coach. And so he was a big advocate for knowing more than one position. So for me to increase value, I just made sure I knew every position on the offensive line. So I literally played guard, tackle, center. I was actually going to play center one game because both of our centers went down.
Oh, wow.
But it's like that. You just kind of got to know all the positions, and it just makes you more valuable. So I was what was known as a swing tackle. So I would go left and right.
Okay. So you say that like pretty nonchalantly, but playing center is really hard, especially for somebody like else on the line. So yeah, that's like a really good talent.
It's a tough position. You got to find the apex of the defense. You got to call out line, so it's a lot.
For sure.
I didn't want to do it, but it helps. So
did that actually translate into your acting career? Because you've been pretty versatile in your acting career in terms of like where you started to where you are now. Like did playing different roles or playing different positions in the NFL help you be a little bit more open-minded to playing different roles now that you're acting?
I think the NFL helped with a lot of things. I think discipline, work, all that stuff. But I think that played a part in not being pigeonholed into one thing. And I think I came here with the mentality that I didn't want to be a shtick. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just kind of be big black guy who is always the bouncer, or the big black guy who's always like the cop or the thug or whatever. And for me, I think while we found a bit of success is we've kind of gone against type. So we'll go into a room and be like, we're having him come in for the office nerd. And they're just like, what? You know what I mean? But it's like, once I do it, and then they're like, oh, it would be funny if it was him. You know what I mean? And so does it work every time? Absolutely not. But when it does work, it's something special. And I think that's what's helped a lot is kind of going against type and not doing what everybody expects.
So also going with that, like talking about going against type, you used to be 360 pounds. Like you were an offensive line.
I was an O-lineman, yeah.
Yeah,
I miss the food so much. Oh, I miss being fat. I loved it. Loved every bit of it.
You can't eat like that anymore, huh?
Can't eat like that anymore. I can't chase around these kids. My son is a Tasmanian devil. He will go all over the place. So I have to chase him around. I can't be heavy.
Did you cut all that weight when you came out to LA the first time around to get the acting role? Okay, so you knew what you wanted to do exactly. You had a
Absolutely, plan. Yeah. When I got here, the first thing, it kind of went in stages because it's so much weight. Like I ended up losing 100 pounds. But what it is it started with kind of like no more sodas, no more fried food, only eating normal human mortal portions and not a dozen pieces of chicken and have a plate of mashed potatoes. Like, you know what I mean? Like I miss it so much. But that's the kind of thing that you gotta kind of do it in stages so that way it comes off the right way and you're still, you don't end up kind of being shaped like SpongeBob SquarePants. So
Right. And that was another thing I was going to say, because usually when people drop that much weight, it's hard for them to actually look like they did not weigh that much at one point. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So when I found out that you actually played in O-line, like you played O-line, I was like, that's crazy. Like nobody would ever guess that without knowing your background.
Every time, and I tell people, I was like, I played football, and they're like, oh, like tight end, wide receiver. I was like, no, but thank you. I truly appreciate that. No, I was one of the big boys in front. But yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, it's wild how much better you feel after dropping that, and just the flexibility and just kind of like not sweating all the time. So it's nice.
So when you first started, I know you said one of your first gigs was with Burn Notice, which was an awesome show. But you also were putting out a lot of Funny or Die videos with your Mudasaka company, like your production company, which was, I watched like all those are super hilarious. Did you do those first? Like, was that the first thing that you did when you got out there?
So when I got here, it's tough because if you haven't been trained yet, and you don't know any casting directors, you don't know agents or reps or anything. So my biggest thing was like, I can't just sit idly by and go to like a scene study class or something. So I bought a bunch of equipment, and the guy that I met on Burn Notice, who later became my writing partner and one of my good friends, Josh Kovit, we were like, all right, let's just start writing some sketches that highlight kind of what we can do. And that'll kind of show off a little bit of like the fact that I'm not just a big black guy who's not funny. You know what I'm saying? And so we were like, all right, let's play with it a little bit. And so we started releasing these videos, and we didn't think they were going to be anything. I mean, we were like, we'll put them on YouTube and just kind of play with them. And then Funny or Die came to us and was like, hey, can you guys make more of these? We were like, yeah, sure. And so, they got with us, and we started posting them on their websites and getting traffic. And we both got kind of busy, like acting with me and writing and directing with him. So we haven't put any out in a while. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's funny that now he gets the same questions. He was like, what about Mudasaka? And I'm like, wow, we got to go back and do that. People really like Mudasaka.
Yeah, man. So, I tried to actually find the website, and the website, I'm guessing, is gone. So
yeah, it's gone, man. Like it was a thing that we did early on that we were just like, all right, yeah, let's just do this for fun to kind of occupy our time, and at least we're doing something in the craft. But it ended up being something really cool. So more than likely, we'll probably bring it back.
I'm sure it helped spur your creativity as well too.
Yeah, it's fun. You know what I mean? Because you get to think outside the box. You get to kind of play, and you learn. I think what I took from it the most is editing the videos, because you start to realize like, oh, this is how an editor sees it, and it makes you a better actor because you know exactly kind of how to approach camera and how to kind of in a scene make it easier on yourself or for the editor later on. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that Funny or Die came and found you guys. Like I thought, maybe you guys had like a friend or something that worked there and you guys threw it to them. So that's really, how did that happen?
No, that was it. It was Josh's friend. She knew him. She saw these videos, and she was like, she talked to her people, and they were like, hey, can they make videos for Funny or Die? We're like, all right, yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So we just started posting them up there.
Gotcha. Is that something that they pay for, or is that just?
No, man, that was we make it on our own, and they're like, you can. Here's what you're blessed with using our website to promote your exposure. Exactly. They're like, we're allowing you to be on our platform. That's about the best we got for it.
Gotcha. And did that actually lead to any of the roles that you landed early on? Did people see that and you got some attention from it?
I wouldn't say it helped land any roles, but I think it helped kind of to just have us be seen as much as possible. I think it helped also just getting practice in front of the camera. I know that it takes 10,000 hours to kind of be good at anything. And I think that's what we did. We were just kind of trying to churn out as much as we could, as fast as we could, trying to get practice until I finally went into like a 3-year conservatory as far as acting goes to learn the actual, craft of it.
So when did you start in that conservatory?
I'd say probably 2011.
Okay.
Or so. I remember I went to a Super Bowl party or something. I met someone, and they told me, they were like, "Hey, man, listen, I'm an acting teacher who is now my mentor, and later on became one of my good friends, Josh Baton. And he's like, I got this acting class. Be great. Come on in, see if you like it." And I loved it. Yeah. And I ended up doing it for 3 years because the program called for it. You learn everything, but it helped. It was awesome. It set the foundation for everything I do now.
Yeah. If you started in 2011, you're there for 3 years. So 2014, you got basically that's when you left. You had a lot of roles in that time, like a lot of good shows, Rizzoli and Isles, Bosch, Revenge, Marin, The Mick, like the list goes on and on and on. And really cool, HBO's Insecure, which I'm a big fan of. Didn't even realize that you were on that show as well. But,
early on.
Did that conservatory help you land those roles?
It did, just because I was trained. You know, I finally got trained, and it just helped, because it's interesting how, almost like the same thing in sports, you know, when you're not at that level and you're going to play with varsity, it's like you're exposed. But I think once you learn the skills and you get caught up on the speed of it, it really helped to just kind of, all of a sudden it just started kicking in and things just started going. So I think that more than anything, that's what the conservatory helped, is it helped to give me the confidence to go into those rooms and be like, no, I'm going to get this role. You know what I mean? And to be able to hold your own with people that are legends, you know, like Kiefer Sutherland and you know, the people from Rizzoli and Isles and just everyone that I've worked with, Mark Harmon, all those guys. So it's just, it makes it to where you can hold your own in those rooms.
Did you meet your agent or agency while you were at the conservatory?
No, I did. I didn't meet them from there. It's a complicated story, but I think I was dating someone who was best friends with this famous actress, and they kind of had a manager friend who, you know, basically was like, started doing research on me and then was like, you know what, hey, I want to sign you if you're down for it. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. Because up until that point, all I was getting was commercial auditions. It was all commercial stuff. Gotcha. And then he's the reason that all that stuff started turning it around and getting me introduced into casting directors and people that could help kind of really launch a career.
That's awesome. I first actually saw you on Raven's Home as Coach Fitz, because my daughter, first of all, that's one of my daughter's favorite shows. So nice. I'm sitting there watching it.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, of course. And I'm watching, I'm like, okay. When you reached out to me on Strong Black Fathers, it was after I had already saw you on Raven's Home, but I didn't put the connection together until a little bit later. So I was like, oh, that's Coach Fitz. So I'm sitting here. I get
that a lot. Yeah.
Guess who I'm about to talk to? I'm about to talk to Coach Fitz.
Coach Fitz. Yeah. With the big eyes and the.
Yeah. How did that one come about? Was that through the agency?
Well, it was interesting. It was through my manager. You know, we had done a few Disney things before that, and I know that my wife and I discussed it, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to be pigeonholed into this. I'm not going to do any more kid stuff. You know, no more Disney shows or any of that. I just don't want that to be my career. Like I'm that guy.
For sure.
So then my manager was like, listen, I know what you said, but this is really funny. You know, you should check out this audition. I think you should go. And I'm not going to say no, you know, I'm like, all right, sounds good. So I didn't read it. My wife read it and she was like, this is really funny. And I was like, okay, well, let me see. And so I read it and I go, all right. And I kind of knew immediately what I wanted the character to be.
Yeah.
It was just kind of instinctual. Like as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, this is who that guy is. And then when I went into audition for it, the producers were crying and just kind of like falling out of the sofa. And so, but at the same time, I didn't know there was a lot of big names in that room that could have gotten the part. And so, you know, when it finally happened, I was like, oh, this is great. And I thought it was going to be kind of a guest star, just like a one-off.
Yeah.
But they loved it, so we just kept doing it.
All right.
So it's worked out. And Raven's awesome to work with, and that whole show is really fun. So I enjoy it. Anytime I get to go over there, I enjoy it.
For sure. Was that your first recurring role, like on TV?
Yeah, I mean, I had done Bosch before. I had a couple episodes on Bosch, but yeah, I would say it's one of my first ones. Yeah.
And was that your first time shooting in front of a live audience?
Yes.
How was that?
Well, no, hold on. I was on shows that had live audiences. I just never did anything in front of them. So This is the first one that I actually had to do stuff, and I was like, okay. It was fun. I liked it. You know what it reminded me of, and it still does with Family Reunion, is it reminds me of Game Day, where everything's live and it's just like it's theater, but it's very the energy of the people and just being out there and just and getting it done. I really love that. So for me, it pumps me up. It's like a party. So after we're done rolling, I'm still wired for the next hour or two.
So at this point, do you enjoy shooting in front of a live audience more so?
Yeah. Oh
Oh, okay.
yeah, I love it. No, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy, and especially if like you're having a down day or you're just kind of tired. I think immediately when the curtain comes up and the audience is there, you just kind of turn on. And I think that's the best part about it is that you feed off of the energy that they give, and
Mhm.
they're just so excited to be there and to watch this whole thing, and you just want to give them a good show. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is you want to make sure that you're always giving your best to the people that support you and are there for you. You know,
That makes sense. I never looked
you
at
got
it that way, but that definitely
yeah,
makes sense.
you don't
But
want to
yeah,
let them down.
speaking of family reunion, this
Yeah.
is your breakout show, your breakout starring role. You're in the spotlight with really notable names. Tia Mowry, Loretta Devine, Richard Roundtree.
Right.
What was it like when you learned you landed a leading role?
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. I know. So Anthony Hill, who was the head writer at Raven's Home at the time, he wrote my character Coach Spitz. He created him. So he knew me and he called me up one day and he was like, "Listen, I have a friend of mine that's creating the show Family Reunion. I think you should audition for the main character, Mose." And I was like, uh, "Sounds good. They're never going to give it to me. I'm not a name guy. I don't have a name. I don't bring an audience or a social media presence. So there's no way that they're going to like have me kind of be the male lead on the show." But I said, "Listen, if you could just give me like a recurring, like a brother or something, I'd appreciate it because I know I'm not going to get this." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But just I want you to audition for this." So I said, "Okay." So I auditioned for it, had the callback, and then didn't hear from them for months.
Mm,
And I was
that's
like,
tough.
I didn't get this. I was like, they're searching for other people, they're doing other things. And that's what it was the case. They were auditioning, celebrity actors, they were auditioning celebrity athletes, anybody they could that would bring an audience.
Hmm.
And they kind of put my tape versus them, and they left it up to the writers in the writers room, and they were like, "Who do you want? Who do you vote for?" And then finally, I got the call to go in for the test, and all of Netflix was there, and I was super nervous. And I made them laugh, and I kind of George Costanza'd it. I was like, as soon as I was done, they were laughing. I was like, "I'm out later," and I just kind of took off. I was like, not gonna ruin this. And so on the way home, Anthony called me and he was like, "Hey man, listen, I really appreciate you coming in. Like you were so close. They really liked you and all." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? Totally fine. Don't worry about it." And then he was like, "Man, come on, you got it." And I was like, "What?" So I swerved. I was driving. I like swerved and I pulled over to the side of the road and I go, "Ant, can you just not do that right now? Can you just tell me what happened? Like what's going on?" He goes, "You got the part. You're going to be on the show." And I freaked out. I think I went home and my wife and I cried for the next 2 days because it just changed
Tears of
everything. I
joy.
mean,
Of joy.
of joy. I mean,
Yes.
it was just, it was amazing. And it was, my son was just born. It was just a crazy time. And it
Awesome.
was, you didn't know where you were going to go really. You just kind of trusted the process and you're like, I hope I get another job so I can afford this stuff. And this happened and it just has changed the trajectory of our lives for the better so much.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it's led to some other things. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you brought something up that I've always wondered. So, for most people, you go, you try to get a job, and you don't get a call back. That means you didn't get the job. Is that the
Right.
case? Same thing in Hollywood. Like you guys aren't getting callbacks. Like if you didn't get the role. Simple as
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
A lot of times you go in. I mean, nowadays they've kind of streamlined it. It used to be an exhaustive process where you go in for the first audition, then you go in for a callback, then you go in for producers, then you know what I mean? It was like a 4-step process. Now it's kind of streamlined where it's like there's no callbacks. It's usually cast off the first audition. They send it off and they just kind of see where it is. But that's pretty much it. Like you go in, if you got it, you'll hear, and they'll either put a pin in you or make you avail, or you just didn't get it. So which
Simple as
happens.
that.
I mean, just it's like baseball. It happens way more than you get it.
Right.
Most of the time you fail. And I'm one of those weirdos who remembers every single job I didn't get. So
But I'm sure that drives you though. Like you
it
said,
does.
I'm sure it drives you to do way better on your next one.
It does. It does. It's one of those things that you realize, and not every part is made for you. I mean, as good of an actor as you think you are, that you're like, oh, I could play a Somalian neuroscientist. You know what I mean? It's like it may not be right for you, or it might be. It just depends. But it drives me, just being competitive and from the NFL, that I want to book every single thing I go out for, and I think that's just kind of the way I'm wired. And so it hurts still every time if I don't get a job that I really wanted to get or that I believed in. It still hurts. So.
That's definitely, I was gonna say, that's definitely the competitive fire burning within you. Like I feel the same way about a lot of little things in my life. But when you were doing the table read with Netflix, did you actually know who your co-stars were going to be at that time?
I did shortly before that.
Okay.
I know Anthony told me, he was like, listen, we just cast Loretta Devine as like the mother. She would be your mother. I was like, okay, cool. And then I think a week or two later, he was like, we cast Tia Mowry to be your wife. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I love the way he put it. He was like, your wife or your mother, like I got the part. And so I was like, it made me feel good and confident going in there. But there's a lot of factors that go into it. And so you just never know. And then the last one, when he said Richard Roundtree was going to be your dad, I was like, what? I was like, Shaft? Shaft is my dad? I was like, this is crazy. I'm good to go. And so it pumped me up to want to really perform and do what was necessary to get that part, Yeah,
I can definitely tell that you put a lot of time and effort into your craft to make sure that you can be the best and do the best that you can. But were you actually nervous about holding your own against yourself?
These people are legends, man. They've been doing it for decades. I'm coming in. It's my first role, surrounded by these people. So I think just like in football, that's another thing that football helped with. Coming in as a rookie, you're playing with Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas and Kevin Carter and Bonnie Holiday and all these guys. Immediately, you're like, I'm just not going to be the weak link. And I think what that does is it drives you to work harder than everyone. And I think if you do that, if you start working harder than everybody else, then it gives you a chance to be at their level, and it gives you a chance to not be the weak link. And so for me, going into Family Reunion, that was the biggest thing, is I didn't want people to watch the show and go, oh, he's obviously the new actor. You know what I mean? And I think for the most part, from the responses that we've gotten, like people don't see it that way. And that makes me happy, is that, they have no idea who I am or where I came from, but they like it. So that's the great. They're like, I don't know who he is, but he's fun. That boy funny.
Right.
But sure. It's a great thing that they're not looking at it and going, okay, he's the new guy. And so that's what I didn't want. I didn't want to be the new guy and the weak link in the bunch.
Sure. You have a lot of scenes with Tia in the show. Like, you guys are almost inseparable in the show. Yeah. Did she help you out a lot? Like, when you first started, like, was she like a really like a guiding force, or like almost like a mentor on the set?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like a mentor. It was more, she helped me out in the way that our chemistry was just kind of like immediate. I think is immediately when we met each other, she and I just kind of were goofballs and got along. And I think immediately we just started kind of joking and playing and brought that on screen. And when they gave us lines or they gave us scenes, we would kind of rework it a little bit, because we were like, well, this is what Coco would do. This is what Mose would do. You know what I mean? And so we started playing with that. And it was immediate. I think it was like week 1. And so that's what helped. It helped to have somebody that you could play with on set who was very cool and just fun and a light to kind of be around. So I think that was the thing that helped the most.
That's awesome. Your character Mose, it's funny to see the comparison between your character Mose and his dad. And like, Mose is like the new school dad, like, I'm a little bit more feel like touchy-feely, right. Like I'm feelings. And then his dad is like the old school, like, let's get out the belt, more or less. Yeah. But do you see yourself a little bit in Mose in terms of like parenting style? I know your kids are pretty young, but like, do you see that's going to be yourself in the future? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that really drew me to the character was the fact that we are very similar, and it doesn't follow a stereotype. I think when you look at the relationship, not just between Coco and Mose, but I think the relationship of the way the family operates, there's nothing stereotypical about it. I mean, it's not like I come in being the football player and just being like, I run shop. Everybody does what I say, and this is the way it goes. It's like, most of the time Coco's running shop. You know what I mean? And I'm sensitive, and I relate to my kids, and I'm not this, impenetrable force that really can't relate to them. And if I do that, it's called out on the show where they're like, I don't, and I think there was an episode there where it's like the kids didn't want to talk to me because they were like, you don't want to hear it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're breaking type by being like, he's not just like every other guy out there. He's different. He's a dad that is actually going to listen, who's actually compassionate, who actually kind of really wants to get in there and be with his kids.
So, I mean, you're pretty goofy, like in terms of like the things that you do, but then you just said it as well, like you know that you're probably going to raise your kids in a similar fashion. Are there any other ways that you're similar to that character?
Yeah, I mean, the on paper ways we're both football players. He's a tight end, which is very flattering for me. Thank you. After being an offensive lineman, to be called a tight end is great. But the mac and cheese thing, I'm not lactose intolerant the way Mose is. But yeah, I think the way we handle the kids, I think the relationship he has with his wife too is very similar to the relationship I have with my wife. We're best friends.
Yeah.
And I think you don't look at them as like, don't tell her this or don't tell her that. It's more of just like, we just kind of handle everything together, and we're usually on the same page.
That's awesome. It's good to have that type of partnership that way. I mean, because if that
helps,
let's say if that's the case, like a lot of things don't even have to be said.
No, not at all.
Simple
as that. It's like the Bulls in the 90s. Like, you just know where to be.
But are there any ways in particular that you guys are different, you and your character, Mose?
He kind of grew up in the South in the country. So he's got kind of those regarding like race and I think there's now I'm like off. There might be in the second 10. I don't want to give anything away. But I think we we're a little different in that aspect. We're very similar in the way that like our daughter is dating, where it's like she's not going to date till she's about 38, 39. But other than that, I mean, pretty much on all levels, we're about the same person. I try to make it as close to me as possible, so it's as authentic as possible, just because I know this character, I know what he's been through. Yeah.
And I know you just kind of hinted towards it. Season 2, family reunion is coming out. Yep. When does season 2 start?
So part 2. First of all, we have a Christmas special, which will be on December.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Excited about.
That'll be really fun. That was a fun one to film. That was one of my favorites. And then we have the second 9 dropping in January. And then once that happens, we start filming season 2 in February.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So those should be out by next summer. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. I'm sure you guys you have more Ravens Home coming up as well.
Yeah, let's hope.
On there. Some more. And then also you have a really good recurring role on Shameless, which is a huge TV show.
I love that.
Yeah. How did that happen?
So it's a funny story. I was filming Family Reunion when we got the call. I had just finished like a rehearsal day or something like that. And the audition was supposed to be at around 5, and I had finished and it was like 4:45, and it was in Burbank, and we film in Paramount, which is like down south. So it was like an hour away. And I was like, I don't know if I can make this. And my reps were like, don't worry, we have them on the phone. We're just stalling them to stay till 6. And so I ran in there. I'm huffing and puffing. I'm sweating. They were like, all right, can you do that? Are you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And I did the audition, and I walked out of there like I 1,000% didn't get this part, just because I was rushed and I was like freaking out, and it just wasn't going to happen. And then I was with my wife in the car, and my manager called and he was like, yeah, man. So as far as Shameless goes, you got it. And I was like, what? I'm sorry. And so they had us come in, and so we did some episodes for them. So that was an amazing experience, just because it's such a cool cast. We got to go to Chicago to film.
Oh wow.
So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really iconic. Is that the first time that you had to go, I guess, on site, like out of state to go film?
I had to go back to Texas when I first started for a commercial.
Okay.
But that was pretty much one of the first times. That's probably the first time that I've ever had to film something major in another place, which I thought was super cool. I was like, sweet, another level. Yeah. I was like, this is neat. They're actually paying for me to travel to act. This is cool. Yeah. So that was really neat.
So yeah, I mean, you basically just touched on my next question. You have been climbing the ranks, like first, doing commercials, and then doing one-offs, and then becoming a recurring guest, and then now you have a lead, and now you're on a recurring, but on a huge net, or not even network, but like a larger show. And now, what is next in line? Are there some films on the way that you can talk about if you can?
I can't. There's a lot I can't talk about, but we're working. That's the good thing. Is we're working. We're trying to stay busy. It was kind of I was a little disappointed because I wanted to start filming Family Reunion right away because I just love it. But we're not filming till February, so that was nice. So it gave me a bit of a break and some time to actually go do other projects like Shameless, and Raven's Home and some other stuff. So that was the fun thing. But yeah, we're there's a lot of great things on the way that'll probably be announced in the next couple of weeks or so. But it's good. I'm happy.
I'm excited to see what you have in the pipeline. Like, I already know, seeing like how your career has been moving, that there's definitely some big things on the way. Like, I can only imagine.
Let's hope, man. Fingers crossed. You know what I mean? It's all I want. I'm just trying to stay working, stay busy, and just do the best job I can so people kind of realize how much I enjoy it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's get into some of these final questions. Final questions that I ask all my guests. So number one, how have your children changed your life?
Two things. One, they taught me patience. Just because you have to be patient if you have two toddlers running around the house. The second thing that they taught me is it's not about you. Life isn't about you. It's about, it's about the little things. It's about seeing them grow up, about raising them to be good people and contributing to society. And personally, I just want them to be funny. If they're funny, it means they're intelligent, and that's all I want. So, but that's what they taught me.
Yeah. They're really young, but have they had the chance to go to set and watch you live?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they haven't watched me live, but they're still babies, so they're they cry and they get tantrumy, but they visited set and they've kind of been held by everybody and walked around, so that's the fun part. But we do put Family Reunion on TV, and my daughter's like, I want to watch Dada's show, and so that's what she loves to do. So she watches Raven's Home and she watches Family Reunion just because she wants to see me on TV.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's an awesome feeling though too.
Oh, it's super cool. I mean, the fact that she's like, I want to watch Dada's show, and I'm on TV. It's still a surreal kind of thing. Hence why I put my head down and just was like, I'm just gonna go to work because this is freaking me out, But yeah.
Okay. What's one moment that will live in your memories like it just happened recently? Now, it can be with you and acting, it can be with you and the kids, you and your wife. Completely up to you.
I think recently, I go to the gym every morning at like 4:30, right? I get up and go, and then I come back home usually by about 7. And I came home and my wife had both kids in the bed with her, and they were all watching like Frozen or something. And you look around and you look at, like, we just got our new house, and you look around and you're like, we are really, really lucky. And it was just such a cool moment to see like my family and to see kind of this life that we're building. So that was cool for me. It was very neat to see that. And I'll always, is kind of one of the first times that I took a step back and I was like, oh my God, like this is happening. So I think that's one that's going to stick with me for a while.
That's great. So as a goofy dad and watching Frozen, tell me, do you know the words to Let It Go by heart?
Every single word. I sing this. We sing it all day in the house.
Yeah. Dads of daughters. Yeah.
All of that, Moana, the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I dance with her all the time. I pick her up and do the whole hand thing, and we just kind of like dance all throughout the house with the speaker. But yeah, I know every scene and every word of that song, especially because it's being played about 10 times a day in our house. So
I'm sure your son is loving it just as much too.
He does. Yeah, he doesn't care.
He's just like, all the time.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, this is cool, and he laughs, and so he enjoys it. He doesn't care.
Yeah. All right, man. And final question, or I guess not even really a question, but what advice do you have to new fathers?
To new dads, understand that kids kind of bring out the best version of you, right? So my advice would be to just love them and listen to them, and everything will be fine. I know it's scary. A lot of times it was scary for me, but if you love them, that kind of guides most of the choices and decisions you make. So I think if you just like, okay, what's the best thing for these kids right now, whether if it's hard or not, I think that helps to guide. That's kind of a nice waypoint to guide you wherever you need to go as far as making decisions for them.
Okay, for sure. Now, is there any plugs or anything that you got going on that you want to let the people know about?
I can't. That's the thing. I want to.
No.
I'm like chomping at the bit to be like, I did this, and it's very cool, but I can't. But other than that, Family Reunion season 2, we start filming in February, December 9th. Be sure to check out the Christmas special. And I think it's mid or early January where part 2 comes out with the second batch of episodes.
Okay, man, perfect. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you're battling some sickness right now, so I'll let you go ahead and take care of yourself and of the fam. I'm really excited to see where your career takes you to. I know that there's going to be some great things in the future, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hopefully I can keep making you guys proud.
You definitely will, man. All right, brother. Well, you take it easy, okay?
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. All right, bye.